Hey there. I'm just going to do a quick ramble. I don't have a ton of time. I know I haven't been recording lately, but it has been downpouring here. I could do another joke video outside where I'm just sitting in the rain. I'd have lots of opportunities because, yeah, it's been raining nonstop here. I don't know what's going on. It's literally been raining every day for the past, 2 to 3 weeks now. We finally have a decent day, although it is very cloudy, so this video might end up looking a little weird because that always happens whenever it's cloudy because it goes from being super bright to being really dark. We'll see. I try my best to, fix it in editing, but you can only do so much. Anyway, we're just going to ramble. I have a few things I want to talk about. First thing, this is just something I wanted to touch on really quickly. I was looking at that picture of, I made a post yesterday, I guess. I got an email from YouTube saying they had this new feature where you have channel communities now where people, other people can post stuff on your channel. So I was like, okay. So I went to check that out. I guess it's essentially they're basically trying to do subreddits a bit, I guess, apparently. It's just all built into YouTube. I don't know. Like I said, well, I didn't say this in this video, but I said this in the post, but I don't know how useful that is for a channel of this size, but it's there if you want to use it. But as the start to experimenting with that to see how that worked, I made a post, and in the post I included a picture of me and my brother's dog, Ollie. And I was looking at the picture, and this has nothing to do with the community thing. I just had to preface this. But I was looking at the picture, and it made me think dogs and lots of animals for that matter are exactly the same if you think about it with humans and stuff. We all have eyes, we all have a mouth, we all have a nose, we all have ears. Now, to be fair, obviously dogs and other similar animals are all mammals, right? So you could argue that oh, well, of course, Connor, that's why they're in the same category of animal. But I mean, even outside of that, animals are all pretty similar if you really think about it. I mean, amphibians, you got lizards. They have eyes, they have a mouth, they have a nose, they have ears. And as far as I know, they function in the same way that a human's body parts would. So their mouths have a tongue and they have saliva, and their ears have hairs inside the, the chamber. I don't know how it works exactly. It's a little above my pay grade, but your ear has hairs, little tiny hairs that can sense pressure differences in the air, which is how you hear things, because sound is just pressure waves through a medium. In most cases, it's air. But yeah, I mean, literally almost every animal. There's only a handful of animals that I can think of that are fundamentally different. Jellyfish. Jellyfish are quite different. Although, honestly, I don't even know if they count as a living organism. Okay, obviously they do, but they don't even have a brain or anything. So as far as life goes, yes, they are very different. So there are a few examples, but for the most part, an overwhelming majority of animals on the planet, Animal Planet, are overwhelmingly similar. And it just made me think it's crazy to think that there are people out there that genuinely don't believe that every all life on the planet originated from a common ancestor, I guess that includes plant life, and plant life and animal life are quite different. But as far as the animals go, and I feel animals are more commonly cited as examples of creation, just because they're a bit cooler than plants. Plants are kind of lame, let's be honest. They just sit there. But yeah, I mean, it's they're all so similar, Like, I feel like I could come up with like really crazy shit. Like, if I was an all-powerful god and I could make anything into reality, I would just go ham. I mean, we're talking leg animal. It's just a leg. Let's see how that thing survives, you know? I mean, if we're talking like God, you know, you can do whatever you want. Why would you even like limit yourself to like what we observe to be the like physical laws of our universe? Like, you could literally do whatever you want. Energy creature. It's literally just like an energy field floating through the air. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. But that's not the main topic for this video. In this video, I wanted to talk about sci-fi games, specifically games like Star Citizen, Starfield, Elite Dangerous, No Man's Sky, those types of games where the scope is, or the premise is, that it's like this vast galaxy or universe or whatever to explore, right? And you can go to like multiple planets and multiple solar systems. I've talked about this a bit in the past, especially when I was talking about Starfield. I think I've made a few videos about Star Citizen. I don't know that I've ever talked about No Man's Sky or Elite Dangerous in, specific, but I've maybe mentioned them in passing. But the point is, I want to talk about what I consider to be a massive, like, fumble for every single one of those games. In every single one of those games, they always include multiple solar systems, like this idea that you're like traveling interstellarly, right? And I just don't get it. I don't understand why they do this. Every game that involves like space travel, I feel like almost always, if not always, includes multiple solar systems. Which, I mean, fair is fair. If you could populate entire solar systems with content, then sure, go for it. But the fact of the matter is that they never do. And so it just makes me, I fail to comprehend why they feel the need to incorporate that into the game. Just make it a single solar system. You can have multiple planets. Obviously, a solar system is made up of multiple planets, usually. I mean, I guess there's probably some out there that are just one planet, maybe even no planets. There's probably stars out there that don't have anything orbiting it. Well, honestly, probably not, but I don't know. Not one single thing orbiting it. I mean, the universe is a pretty big place. There's got to be at least one, right? I don't know. Maybe that is physically impossible. Just because of how like solar systems form with like the accretion disk and everything. It might not be possible for it to all consolidate into one mass. But regardless, most, if not all, solar systems are going to have multiple planets. And I mean, we're talking about planets here, right? I mean, you think of like the biggest games in terms of like the game world, right? Big open world games. You're going to think of games like, The Witcher 3, Skyrim. Skyrim's world is actually not really that big, but I mean, people would probably point to it as an example of a big open world. GTA 5, GTA 6 is going to be pretty crazy when that comes out. There's big games, but none of them come even close to matching the scale of the entire Earth, let alone multiple Earths. Like, it doesn't make sense to me why they always take the step to include multiple solar systems when they can't even put enough content into the game to like flesh out a single solar system. It just doesn't make sense to me, because it's like anybody that sets out to make a sci-fi space exploration type game, right? Fundamentally, at the moment you decide to do that, you are making the admission that it is impossible for you to populate even a single planet with like a realistic amount of content that a person would expect to find in the real world. It's just not possible. I mean, there's been like 100 or more billion people that have ever lived on Earth over the course of like thousands of years. I don't know. I mean, recorded human history goes back like 6 to 7,000 years, I'm pretty sure. But obviously, I mean, humans existed for like tens of thousands of years before that. Of course, most of that was spent, in caves and shit. regardless. You just can't compete as like a singular development studio. Even if you were a massive studio, let's say you have 10,000 people, which 10,000 people is a ridiculously large development studio, like in the top 0.0001% of studio sizes. I don't even know if there's a single studio in the world that's 10,000 people. It's just a ridiculous number. Even at that absurd scale, you would have to work, each individual on your team would have to work at, 100,000, 100 million, I don't even know. It would just be 100 billion divided by 10,000, which I'm not good at big numbers, but it's a lot. Each individual on that studio would have to do the work of like 100 million people. They'd have to work 100 million times more efficiently to even be able to keep up with the progress and the achievements of real life civilization. There's just too much, right? And, obviously it is easier to build things in the virtual world because, you're not actually having to like lay brick by brick when you build a building. But, yeah, it still doesn't matter. It's not that much easier that it would make that big of a difference. It's just impossible. You can't possibly do it. So with that admission in mind, when you set out to make one of these games, you're admitting to yourself and the whole studio or whatever. It doesn't matter if it's an indie game with 5 developers or a massive studio with 10,000. You're admitting that it is impossible for you to populate this game with a real life amount of content and like depth and like not even like interactable content, but just like visual content. Like you just can't possibly make a virtual city of that scale. It's just not possible. So then it makes no sense to me that while admitting that, you would then also decide to incorporate multiple solar systems. It's like you can't even do it for one planet, let alone one solar system. So why would you include multiple solar systems? I just personally think it'd be way more interesting if all these games that have multiple solar systems would take all of that content that they have for, the greater game as a whole, the galaxy, the whatever, and just consolidate it down into a single solar system. Infinitely more interesting, because all of a sudden, you have these planets that instead of just being a single city per planet, might have, I don't know, like 5 cities, which is still just like, it's crazy to think of like how much human like civilization has accomplished. When you think about like, the biggest games, like GTA 6 is a good example. It's reportedly going to be like $2 billion to have created GTA 6. And that was a while ago. I don't know if that was a predicted value or if that was the value at the time. So it's even more now. I'm not sure. But point being is that when GTA 6 comes out, it's probably going to be the most like detailed, richly, like meticulously crafted world. And it's also probably going to be fairly large, but it's probably not going to be the biggest game ever. Even for like we're not including games like No Man's Sky. Like obviously, yeah, no game is going to be that big. But that was $2 billion to make that game. That's the single most expensive, like, creative endeavor of all time, regardless of whether you're talking about movies, video games, sports, I don't know, like literally anything. $2 billion to do that. And that's one city. One city. The entire Earth is comprised of what? I mean, even if you're only going to count like cities the size of like Miami, New York, Shanghai, those sorts of places. I mean, what? I mean, every country's going to have probably at least one of those. And how many countries are there? There's like 140 some countries in the world. I mean, the United States alone has like, I don't know, like 10 large cities. So, like, the fact that even if you consolidated these games that have all these solar systems down to a single solar system, so you had to have planets that are like 5 cities. It's like 5 cities. But that's just the point I'm trying to make, is like, when these games incorporate entire solar systems, separate solar systems, inevitably they end up making it to where each planet serves like a primary singular function. This planet is this city, and that's it. It's just so weird, especially because it's like, I think just there's a big disconnect between like the lore of a game and like the setting and the themes of a game and what's actually presented in game. Now, granted, this has always been a thing. I remember playing Skyrim, and it's like, you know, the lore of Skyrim and the lore of all of the Elder Scrolls games for that matter is that, you know, you're in this world inhabited by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of things. And, you know, these cities are supposed to be massive, sprawling, you know, urban environments, and the villages are supposed to be much bigger than they are. But then you go to like Whiterun in Skyrim, and it's like 10 buildings and there's like 15 people that live there. And it's like the biggest bastion of humanity on the whole map, right? So like the idea that like the lore of the game doesn't match up with the in-game representation that you can actually play with isn't anything new. But I would say that for games like Skyrim and stuff, you're more willing to like believe that that's possible, just because I think that like not only is your like, at least for me, I can't speak for everyone, I'll speak for myself here, but my understanding of like medieval times, even though obviously Skyrim is fantasy, it's not necessarily like historical medieval, but you know what I mean. You know, my expectation of those times is that there were less people. There weren't as many people. So I have less of an issue believing that this city is reasonable, because that just, you know, that is what it is. But then you play a game that takes place in the far future, and it's like, oh yeah, this entire planet is just one city. Like, what? Imagine if the entirety of Earth was like just New York City. The rest of the Earth was just barren wilderness. Maybe a few like research stations here and there, random like outposts scattered around. But the like only place where you would consistently find like humanity was like this one city. That's just wild. Like, no, it's like we're taking place in the future where like humankind and human civilization has like vastly advanced. I mean, we would have had to in order to even create the ability to like warp drive between solar systems and stuff. Like, we would have to be significantly more advanced and more prolific to like even allow that type of civilization in the first place. And yet we've got entire planets that are just one city. Again, I'm not really saying that like these games should include planets that have the depth and richness of the real world. I fully understand that that's impossible. If anything, I feel like that's just kind of a reason to say that like these games just will never ever be able to be made no matter what. But my point is just that it doesn't make sense for you to include entire solar systems or multiple solar systems when you can't even populate a single planet. Like, just consolidate it down. If it was a single solar system, then you make the planets just that much more reasonable, because now instead of having just one planet or one city, they might have like 5, like I said. But also, it's like, I feel like the main motivation for including multiple solar systems is so that you have that moment where it's like, okay, we're going to the next solar system. But it's like, is that really necessary? The distances between the planets in our solar system is massive. It's massive. I mean, what is it? Voyager 1, Voyager 2, I forget which one, and I forget the exact numbers. But I mean, one of them is moving at like 43,000 kilometers per hour or something like that, I'm pretty sure. And we launched it back in like what? Like the 60s, 70s, something like that. I don't know. It's been like 50 years. 50 years at least. It's going 43,000 kilometers per hour. That's faster than anything you could possibly imagine, because there is nothing on Earth, there's nothing that you have personally come into contact with that moves that fast. It is an unfathomable speed. You cannot picture it at all. It is moving faster than you can imagine, and it's been doing that for 50 years. And only just like recently did it reach like the outer edge of our solar system. Like the solar system is massive, and the spaces within it are ridiculously huge. You don't need to include interstellar travel to have that like spectacle moment, you know, where it's like, ooh, we're going a really long distance. It's like, no, the distances between the planets are already massive. Like, just if you want to have your warp drive, like the, you know, like all the fancy effects and stuff, you can still do that. Just have it be between the planets, or have it be between like any 2 points in space. It's massive. It's massive. It would take us like, what, 3 months to get to Mars? It takes you like 3 years to get to Jupiter or something like that. I don't even know. That might not be accurate. I mean, obviously it depends on how fast you're going, but regardless, space is massive. Like ridiculously massive. I just feel like you don't need to include multiple solar systems in order to like achieve that feeling of like, ooh, we're going somewhere really far away, you know? Not to mention the fact that like when I've played games like No Man's Sky, Starfield, Star Citizen, that sort of thing. Although I haven't played Star Citizen in a long time. And I haven't played Star Citizen since they've added, I think they did finally add like another solar system to that game. But regardless, I've played games, space games that have multiple solar systems, and the like act of jumping between them is not like any more special, in my opinion, than just going between the planets anyway. So it really, the whole idea that like they're doing it for the spectacle, they're doing it for that like, whoa, it's crazy to go between the stars versus between the planets. It's like, no, it really isn't that much different, especially because in a lot of these games, the whole idea of like being in the far future is the fact that we can get there really fast. So, I mean, intuitively, you're already shrinking the distance between them anyway, right? It doesn't matter how far apart they are in the lore. If I load between them in 3 seconds, what does it matter? It's the same distance to me as a person, unless you're just going to arbitrarily like inflate the amount of time it takes to get from point A to point B in your game, which is something that Elite Dangerous does a lot, where it's like, you know, although Elite Dangerous actually kind of does it the opposite way, which is ironic, but in Elite Dangerous, you can go between solar systems, and it happens almost instantly. I mean, it takes like 10 seconds to load or whatever. But once you get into the solar system, if you want to go to like a planet or a space station or whatever, you have to fly there, although you're flying at like multiple times the speed of light, obviously, but significantly slower than the warp speed between solar systems. But there are solar systems in Elite Dangerous where to get to like the place you want to go, you literally have to fly there for like 20 minutes. Like, that's not an exaggeration. No, it's just like flying in a straight line for 20 minutes of real time. It's like, if I mean, that does make the distance feel quite large, because all of a sudden I go from being able to get to where I want very immediately to being able to get there in 20 real life minutes, which is, you know, it does give you a sense of distance, but it's also just not fun at all. So I don't know. I just feel like there's really no reason for games like that to include multiple solar systems. I really think that if you like take a step back and you look at it from like a logical perspective, from a gameplay perspective, I just think they'd play significantly better and be infinitely more interesting if they were just one solar system. You could still fly between the planets the same way you can now. Again, you could include all your fancy warp effects if you want to. Just have them be between the planets. And then you have way more content closer together, so it feels more interesting to like explore shit, rather than each planet being one city and nothing else. And then you could even do more interesting things, because that's another thing, where it's like, because each planet is one city in most like sci-fi games, you don't have like faction zones, right? It becomes separated, where like instead of the planet itself being divided into like nations or factions or whatever, you have the planets themselves are separated. So this planet is part of this faction, and this planet is part of this faction. That's just boring. Like, I want there to be borders, and I want there to be like war. Like if it's two warring factions, like if I go to the border of the faction, boom, there's a war zone there, you know, just like intuitive stuff like that I feel like you don't get, especially because like I guess that same logic applies to space. Like there's a border in space where it's like, this is my space and this is your space. Stay on your side of it. It's like if there's war, then yeah, I should be able to go there. But space is so arbitrary, you know. It's not only is it just infinitely vaster. Is vaster a word? More vast? I don't know. But it's also like infinitely imprecise because there's no, you know, point of reference in space. Versus on a planet, on the ground, it's like, this is the border. It's right here. I've marked it. These are the coordinates. It's like, boom, I can go there and then something should happen. You know, it's like, I just feel like there's way more interesting things you could do with a smaller game that would still incorporate all of the fancy, like, spectacle that I think is the main draw for most sci-fi games, which is like, you know, everybody wants to be this spacefaring future guy, right? And it's like, yeah, of course. That's why I'm into sci-fi. Like, it's awesome. But you don't have to incorporate multiple solar systems in order to pull that off. And in fact, I think it probably makes it a little bit worse. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think. I think that will do it for this video. It actually ended up being a little bit longer than I thought, but I talk really repetitively. I repeat myself like all the time, so I don't know. But I guess that's the point of ASMR, right? You're just listening to me ramble while you fall asleep or study or do something else, so it doesn't matter what I'm saying. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you later.